again, Gore conceded before the safe harbor date even. Florida had to certify their electors, like the state of Florida did, to send them to the federal government. Gore conceded before that happened. Trump didn't do that. Trump had people sign false slates of electors and then transmit those uncertified false slates to Congress to try to get Mike Pence to throw it back to the House of Representatives.
But they were just uncertified. Network affiliates are in such trouble with the fact that everybody's watching YouTube and not watching the nightly news that's more that has more to do with them not carrying Kimmel like that. The Fed can do anything.
I think
the Fed is flawless.
What do you mean?
I mean,
no, it's not.
The way that you're talking is that Donald Trump is
I think the Federal Reserve operates a whole lot better.
It's like they're like the resistance. They're resisting tyranny. It's like the way that you
I
have
do think that's what my base your own palette to it. I don't think the Fed is flawless, but I do think the Federal Reserve operates a whole lot better independently right now than it would under the direction of the President of the United States, because the Federal Reserve, by being like an undemocratic, technocratic institution, is able to make decisions non-politically. It's able to make decisions focused on like the long-term economy. Liking and subscribing helps me continue to produce content, and it's greatly appreciated. You can also make sure to catch these debates live, either here on YouTube or in the description. There are links to my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter.
I do a lot of things, but to put it succinctly, I just got in the Producers Guild of America this year, so I work in the entertainment industry. I'm working on a film about Chloe Cole. You can see that back here. I'm doing a screening series of documentaries, detransitioner stories here in Los Angeles called Detrans Hollywood. But as part of all that, and during COVID, I decided I had enough. I wasn't really politically active before then. I got politically active, got involved with the parental rights protests out here, got arrested, going up against Antifa, and just recently I got, while passing out flyers for my series, because I can't get mainstream, I can't get mainstream coverage for it because I keep getting canceled because it's too much of a hate speech to talk about detransitioners. But I was passing out flyers at No King's Rally, and I actually got jumped. So you can check that out on Libs of TikTok or my page. Social media, The Emilio Show. Instagram, YouTube, not much there, but Twitter, or X, rather. So, The Emilio Show. So
yeah. I'll make sure when I do upload it, I'll have your Twitter, I know, linked below. But I guess, yeah, I saw you talk to Luke Beasley. I reached out to a number of people. I've spoken to probably half the Jubilee cast at this point, because after a lot of videos, I'll try to reach out to people. I think you obviously you spent most of your time with him talking about DEI. That's something. I guess we can touch on that if you want, but I feel like the things that are sort of most relevant to me, the things that are most concrete to me, that I was really interested in following up on, were sort of about one of Luke Beasley's prompts, whether Trump is essentially a threat to democracy, what potential threat he poses there, and Trump's performance on the economy, which I believe you did touch on a little bit in the Jubilee episode at the very end. I guess you can kind of pick where to start, but I'd be curious to hear sort of your broad positions on both those things.
Okay, so my broad positions on is Trump bad for democracy? No, he got elected president. He hasn't done anything he hasn't been as authoritarian as other presidents have been. Andrew Jackson or FDR, even Abraham Lincoln was more authoritarian. Of course, these were wartime presidents, as they say in The Godfather. There's a peacetime conciliary and a wartime conciliary. So, but no, he hasn't violated any constitutional things that are so egregious. Like I said, like FDR tried to pack this for Supreme Court, tried to change the shape of the Supreme Court, so they didn't go along with his agenda. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. I don't remember Donald Trump doing anything like that. I guess a lot of the accusations come from the fact that he's a big figure. He's doing things that liberals don't like. He's overturned Roe v. Wade. And now he's running these ICE arrests, but that's why people voted for him, to do something about immigration. So, and even when it comes to January 6th, a lot of the accusations that are leveled against him just aren't accurate. You know, he didn't tell people to rush into the Capitol. He never told people to do that. You know, and he as was kept on, like Luke kept on perseverating about this whole thing, is he never conceded. He never conceded. It's like he conceded in action. Like, well, as I was sitting there thinking about Luke saying that, I was like, you know, Luke, you've read the Bible, right? You've studied the Bible. You've read the parable about the master who sent out his servants, and the servants that said that they would go work in the field and did not. And then there were the servants that said they wouldn't go work in the field, but they landed up going later. And Jesus says, well, who's actually doing my will? The ones that said they were doing my will, or the ones that are actually doing it? And, you know, it's like, you can, it doesn't matter if he said he conceded or it didn't. It does not matter whether he, you know, conceded with his mouth. He conceded with his actions. So, and
Yeah.
you know,
So I guess
so that was a big bottom line for me with that whole debate.
I guess we can start there on two of those things. So, you know, we say, you know, Trump hasn't been as authoritarian as wartime presidents. To some extent, I agree. Like, you know, Trump has not literally suspended habeas corpus, but also, you know, Lincoln was fighting the Civil War at the time. You know, we're not in a war right now, and it's like in a conventional war. We're in a few sort of minor conflicts, but nonetheless, like Trump has, you know, removed the right, or effectively, you know, removed the right of habeas, as the Supreme Court has ruled, even for many of the immigrants who were deported under the Alien Enemies Act. Trump invoked wartime authority with the Alien Enemies Act to be able to deport people, and even, you know, with the sort of even within the Alien Enemies Act, he did not afford immigrants who were deported due process according to the Supreme Court, even the due process that you're afforded under the Alien Enemies Act. You can look at the cases JGG v. Trump and WMM v. Trump, where the Supreme Court said, like, you have to give immigrants an actual right and reasonable amount of time to seek habeas relief, and there were many immigrants who deported who did not have that. And
right,
you
so
know, you can say Trump conceded. Also, on the January 6th point, like, Trump did not concede in his actions either. Trump had an entire plot. Trump begged Mike Pence. Trump begged lawmakers to try to overturn the election, to not certify the vote on January 6th. It was only after his plans all failed that he conceded, in the sense that he left office after his plot failed. But it's not a concede. He still doesn't concede that he lost the 2020 election.
I mean, you call it a plot, but it's just like his plans failed. He asked Pence to do something. He didn't. A true authoritarian, after his plans failed, would have rounded up people and started shooting them, right? He would have commanded the military to go in. He wouldn't have gone like, Pence is a bad VP. I hate the guy. You know, he would. All he did was he did not do authoritarian things. He had a plan to try to fight, but how is that different than how is that any different than in 1876, when things were so contested they were thrown into the House of Representatives?
1876 is literally that election is literally the reason we passed the Electoral Count Act, which specified how we're supposed to count electoral votes and everything. Trump and his lawyers had a plot to violate the Electoral Count Act. They admitted as such. They literally said, you know, they literally asked Pence to do one more minor violation of the Electoral Count Act. Having a plan to try to stay in power after losing an election is an authoritarian thing to do. You can say Trump didn't like literally do the single most authoritarian thing, which would be like ordering the military to, you know, go shoot people who oppose him or whatever. But that's definitely, you know, an encroachment into authoritarianism that of the scale we haven't seen in a long time. That is certainly a threat to democracy.
Well, I don't know if you know, maybe you're not young enough to remember the whole Bush v. Gore kind of stuff, or
Gore conceded before the safe harbor date in the ECA. Gore conceded December 14th, before states were even the safe harbor date to transmit votes to the to be certified. Trump not only like has still not conceded technically that he lost the election, but he had false slates of electors, which he tried to get certified on January 6th, way past the safe harbor date. Like,
Right. But let me put it this way: Gore did not concede either. He took it all the way. He worked up
he
this thing with
did.
the hanging
He
chads,
conceded
and he took it to
before.
court.
He
But
conceded.
at this point, I think you have to look at, are you parsing hairs or are you looking at principles? Because if it's very important for somebody to concede an election, then that's just legalism that you're going like, oh, well, he conceded before this state. Because Trump conceded in action before the transfer of power. That's all that really that's
No,
all
what do
that
you
really
mean?
counted
He
from a
disrupted the
principle
transfer of
point.
power.
Huh?
He disrupted the transfer of power with January 6th. A certification of the vote was literally delayed by the
You
violent
could say
protesters.
that
But
Gore
there's nothing. Hold on.
disrupted a transfer of power
There's nothing.
because during that time I remember things were very heated. It's like every night we did not know whether we were going to have a president at that time. At that time, I got to tell you, growing up in that, I was a young adult. I had never seen that level of contest between two presidential candidates. I mean, at that time, we were worried. Like, is this going to lead to something worse? So, I
Well,
have that broader context of
I
lived
mean,
experience of actually being there, going like, what is going on in Florida? This is
Trump's
horrible.
actions actually did lead to, at least something worse. At least one violent protest or whatever. But
Well,
obviously,
know,
I want to be clear.
that's
There's nothing. So there's nothing in principle wrong with if they are, for example, in Florida, issues of hanging chads, filing like court cases or whatever to try to get recounts and stuff. There's nothing in principle wrong with that. What's wrong is when one, you intentionally repeat false things about election fraud, which Trump did. Trump had so many people around him look into election fraud. They didn't find anything. Trump and Giuliani. Or Giuliani and some other lawyers on behalf of Trump filed, 60, 70 something lawsuits in all these states about election fraud. They only won one minor one in Pennsylvania, and then Giuliani went on to admit that he was lying about election fraud, and he knew he was lying about election fraud. He just simply said, "I have a First Amendment right to lie about those issues." And then, again, Gore conceded before the safe harbor date even. Florida had to certify their electors, like the state of Florida did, to send them to the federal government. Gore conceded before that happened. Trump didn't do that. Trump had people sign false slates of electors and then transmit those uncertified false slates to Congress to try to get Mike Pence to throw it back to the House of Representatives.
But they were just uncertified.
They were well, that's what false means. They were never certified by any state legislator or any governor. They were never approved by state governors or state governments. Well past the safe harbor date by which states are supposed to certify their own votes.
Okay, so all right. So again, you're kind of parsing these little things, but you're not looking at a systemic breakdown. Like when COVID happened, I never went into lockdown ever because I knew what the purpose of the lockdown really was. It had to do with rolling out universal mail-in balloting wherever they could for a presidential election. I was in Colorado when they rolled out. I was living there when they rolled out mail-in voting. Have you ever read the blueprint about the Colorado blueprint? What they did in Colorado to roll out, they rolled out mail-in voting, right? So that they could ballot harvest, which is very, very bad for a democracy. It creates a very passive populace. It creates a lot of opportunity for, we'll call it soft fraud, where people can just go to nursing homes and just pick up a bunch of ballots.
But you're not doing anything other than right now. The thing that you're doing is simply justifying Trump not conceding. I'm pointing out to you there's a big difference between what Gore did and what Trump did, in that Gore, again, had legitimate reasons to be skeptical of the election. Trump didn't. A bunch of people lied about election fraud. You can say maybe there were some other cases of soft fraud or whatever. That's not what Trump and Giuliani and these people were talking about. They were talking about ballot stuffing in Georgia, right?
No. But let me tell you what happened in Colorado when they rolled it out. Okay, so I was living with my mother-in-law, right? My elderly mother-in-law, who was a staunch Democrat. I was a Republican at that time. It was 2013. They rolled out this new thing called mail-in balloting. I didn't realize who were
Not
the
new.
forces behind it. Okay. It was actually, I kind of went, oh, this is kind of cool. I can just mail in my ballot. So I come home from work one day and I asked my mother-in-law, hey, Mom, have you seen my ballot? I need to send it in. She went, don't worry, I took care of it. I laughed it off because they said, oh, it's a school. The only thing that was on there was a school board thing because it was an off year. I said, that's kind of funny that she stole my vote. I kind of don't care. We're homeschooling, so I'm not worried about the school board. I did not realize that there were forces out there, the Colorado Four, that had purposefully and manipulatively rolled out this mail-in balloting with the purpose of getting gay marriage to be the law of the land in Colorado. That was their purpose, right? So in 2020, when I saw, the other time I saw it was 2018. I saw I was living in California at that time, and I saw Orange County flip from very red to very blue. And ballot harvesting was
Again,
legal.
I don't. You
Again,
can
I know
complain
you're
about all
saying I'm
these.
contesting, but I'm looking at systemic issues. You do have to look at systemic issues and not just parse like, well, Gore, he made sure to concede at this moment, and he also made sure to put the top on the milk bottle when he put it back in the
It's not
refrigerator,
like
and he makes sure to put his shopping cart back at the shopping center, so he's a good person. Donald Trump,
okay. Do you
meanwhile,
acknowledge that Gore never had a plan to violate the ECA?
no, but Gore acted in bad faith to go up against Gore because this whole
Okay.
hanging
Did
chad thing,
Trump and Eastman?
Florida was called for Bush, and then Gore, he had a right to file. He filed. What happened in 2020? Also, what happened was that with all these mail-in
Trump.
ballots, all these cases that were put up, none of them really went to court. Many of them did not go to court.
Yeah. So a lot of them did. A lot of them weren't just dismissed on standing, but the factual basis of a lot of these was still it's still evaluated even when they are dismissed in standing or whatever. Again, like Giuliani admitted that he lied about like most of these things anyway. So, but I just want you can.
I don't
you
know.
Can
I don't know that Giuliani
I don't believe.
lied, but I tell you, Mike
Well, he admitted
Lindell.
he was
I
lying.
realize he lost in court with Dominion, but he's never conceded. This guy put a lot of money. There's lots of other guys. Just one guy, Rudy Giuliani, said he lied at one point.
Well, he was the one filing a lot of these lawsuits and perpetuating a lot of these claims. But I mean, you can also look at Fox News was also lying. That's why they had to settle for $800 million or whatever with Dominion. Trump himself was also lying. Like there are people who told Trump like specific claims of election fraud were false, and then he would go on to repeat those same claims. You can literally, what's funny, in that phone call with the Secretary of State in Georgia that Trump made, where he asked him
to find more votes.
Yeah, like in that phone call, you can.
That one was taken out of context.
To some extent, wait, hold on.
You know who didn't?
No, wait. I've listened to. I know what you're trying. To some extent, I agree with you. Trump wasn't asking him to find those votes. Technically, he was asking him to dismiss, to essentially find ways to dismiss votes. But in the phone call, the basis for not certifying the electors in Georgia or whatever, in getting rid of some of the votes was that Trump repeated false claims to election fraud. Trump literally brought up that debunked OANN video of suitcases and ballot stuffing in that phone call, despite him having been told before that moment that video is fake. And the Trump knew that video was fake, but still tried to.
You have to put this in context also of the 2016 election, where Hillary,
oh my God,
she faces this upset. She's very upset. She's like, I was supposed to be the next president, right? Donald Trump, he defied all the polls and won, and all they could answer was Russia, Russia, Russia. Like General Flynn, he was immediately attacked for being
Did
a
Hillary
Russian
ever
spy.
have a plan?
And then they ran this operation. So you're going to tell me that this whole operation of this Russia collusion hoax was justified? Look, I'm just saying, like right now we are kind of in
Again, first of all, even if what you were saying is true, the only thing you'd be doing here is justifying the actions of Trump, not saying that the actions of Trump are actually like any like less like authoritarian or like any like similar to Gore or whatever. You know, it would still be like unprecedented things that Trump did or whatever. You would just be saying it's justified on the basis of Hillary doing something bad as well. But Hillary never had a plan to violate the ECA. Hillary never had false electors. Hillary never. I don't even think like Hillary wasn't herself involved in the start of the Russia investigation or anything.
She wasn't the source of the.
She hired a law firm to do opposition research, who hired another firm, which eventually had to steal dossier or whatever. But Hillary, I don't believe Hillary herself
had nothing to do with Hillary. Just had nothing to do with.
I don't believe Hillary. I don't believe Hillary herself. First of all, I don't believe Hillary herself.
You've heard the reports on the wiretapping with Obama. That's an authoritarian move.
True.
Is that when somebody's moving
again?
out of
I don't believe Hillary herself. Hillary herself, I don't believe had any knowledge of how.
Did people working with Hillary? You don't. First of all, that's an assumption. You think that just because
that's not an assumption, right? Because we know how the Steele dossier got made, and it wasn't even. It was like Hillary, who I don't even know if Hillary herself gave this order or whatever, but like hired a law firm to do opposition research, and that law firm like hired some other agency, and they eventually got information that led to the Steele dossier. But like Hillary, like there's so many like we know. I don't even think the law firm that did the opposition research like knew the sort of like a source of the Steele dossier stuff that was actually like from the Russian source or whatever. But I don't believe the Russian investigation. The Steele dossier was not the only factor in that, right? It was also the testimony of what was it, George Panopoulos or whatever. I believe his testimony is what led to the initial like warrants and the Crossfire Hurricane stuff. I don't believe it was even the Steele dossier that was the only contributing factor there.
No, yeah, there was testimony, and so this guy lied because the whole Russia hoax fell apart. The whole Russia hoax. Hey, you know, according to you, when a court or something says that it's false, it's absolutely false. So that's your standard that you put out there. So yeah, if this guy gave testimony and then it turned out that Russia had nothing to do with Trump, and
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if.
Here's the problem. There is a war going on, and there's an intellectual dishonesty, and it did start in 2016. You know, so it is like some of these justifications you're coming with sound like, you know, like Hillary didn't know. They sound like the mafia. Like, no, the Don didn't know. The Don didn't know.
This is crazy. I'm saying Hillary hiring a law firm to do, or Hillary people like staff members working for her hiring a law firm who eventually like hired some other source who eventually made a document that eventually led to an investigation into Trump and his connections to Russia. Which, by the way, it's not like they like didn't actually find anything. Like there were connections between people in Trump's campaign to the Russian government. Like the Russian Internet Research Agency or whatever did interfere in the election to try to influence voter behavior or whatever, like on online.
Facebook. Are these the Facebook ads that switched over? Because I'll tell you, I you know, my support. I'm just saying,
like
Trump
that wasn't like it wasn't like an entirely baseless.
I don't know any Trump voter who went, "Wow, I saw this great Oppo research from Russia, and that's what changed my mind." No, they changed.
Well, that wasn't the necessarily the mechanism by which like the Russia disinformation stuff worked. It wasn't like they were just on Facebook I think there was posting like. I don't even know if it was all like false information, but they were just like running ads like against Hillary, right? Like I don't even think it was all based on the
any PAC that runs ads is doing election interference. Yeah,
well, when it's a foreign government doing it like for malicious intent or whatever, that's a little bit different. But regardless, what I'm saying here is that there's like a world of difference between Hillary Clinton probably not even having direct knowledge of the Steele dossier and its sources, and that being used to start an investigation into that's not even the thing that started the investigation. It was George Papadopoulos or whatever. That being used to start Crossfire Hurricane versus Donald Trump after losing an election, probably, I would say probably based on all the information we have, knowing that he lost the election. Donald Trump then spreading false claims about the election, many of which were knowingly false claims. If you want to say some of them he was just really stupid and like honestly believe that some stupid shit happened, then I guess you can hold that, but he's probably not mentally competent to hold office if that's the case. And then orchestrating an entire plot to break the Electoral Count Act, which is something, again, Hillary Clinton, Gore, none of these people ever did, with false lists of electors to try to stay in power after losing an election. That is like an unprecedented thing that is like a million times worse than any wrongdoing on behalf of Hillary Clinton with regards to the Steele dossier.
I have a question then. Why didn't, if Trump acted in an authoritarian manner, broke the law, why did Biden not arrest him? Why did Biden not arrest him?
Because they were Trump
overlooks criminals.
No, this is
why didn't Biden arrest him?
This is what's crazy. Is despite, first of all, he was indicted for first of all, he had a trial in the Senate. I'm aware, but I'll get to why he wasn't convicted. But there's a trial in the Senate, first of all, in which Republicans, everyone would have voted to found him guilty if it wasn't the case that Mitch McConnell and a few other Republicans, based on some weird constitutional theory, thought that they couldn't impeach a president after he had left office. So that's number one. Number one, even Republicans wanted to hold him accountable and would have convicted him if not for the fact that Trump left office and they had this weird theory that for some reason he can't impeach a president after he left office. Second of all, despite all the claims of lawfare against Trump, Merrick Garland, the special counsel, but like Biden was not ordering the DOJ to like investigate Trump and do all this shit. Like there was an independent special counsel like Jack Smith set up by Merrick Garland to investigate Trump. He was indicted, but there was it was really slow to happen because, Merrick Garland was incredibly careful of going after Trump. There was reporting that came out recently during the midterms. They like paused the investigation into Trump on the basis that like, investigations of politicians shouldn't be done during election time, even though Trump was not running for office at the time. He hadn't even announced his candidacy at the time. And second of all, there were a lot of sort of unanswered questions with regards to what type of immunity does the president have, which meant that, obviously we had the presidential immunity stuff appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, and they gave down their ruling, and then Jack Smith had to write another indictment, and, by then there were only a few months before the election.
These sound like a lot of excuses. In fact,
to some extent, they are excuses. I think Merrick Garland should have been. I think Merrick Garland should have been more aggressive. But I'm telling you, Trump was granted incredibly favorable treatment.
So wait. So the DOJ can fall down on its job. They can like an attorney general
in some sense
could fail to act.
But you understand the reason they were doing that is because they were concerned. They were concerned about the appearance of corruption or whatever. Like, this is evidence that Biden and Merrick Garland were, like, favorable to Trump. They were very concerned about even the appearance of the DOJ acting corruptly. Trump right now, first of all, Trump, with regard to the January 6th stuff, ordered the head of his DOJ to send out a letter to states with false claims of election fraud, or false claims that they had found election fraud. And then when he wouldn't do it, he threatened to fire him and replace him with another attorney general who would. And second of all, right now, no, because do you know why?
No, it doesn't matter why.
Because everyone in the DOJ threatened to quit if Trump did fire him. There had to be a threat of mass resignation.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this, but I remember that. So Trump succumbed to a threat from his attorney general because he didn't want
from other people.
These don't even make sense. Like, if he's such an authoritarian, why is he letting the DOJ push him around?
Well, I mean, do you understand, like, someone can attempt to do an authoritarian thing, and for various reasons, like, that can fail. Now, I think right now, even with the DOJ, you'd see Trump
doing... You mean like wiretap a former president? They can do an authoritarian thing.
I don't think that's not intrinsically authoritarian.
Or they can organize, they can do an authoritarian thing, like collude with social media to keep a news story out of the public eye.
Yeah, they can censor.
I'm sorry, which authoritarian things? They can roll out a plan. This was an actual plan where they rolled out mail-in balloting in order to secure secure a candidate that was going to have to go up against a candidate with a really great economic record.
True. That was during COVID. Like, there were obviously legitimate reasons
During
to do mail-in
COVID?
balloting, and then
You were there during COVID.
Trump did a ton of
Let me ask you,
investigation.
did you get COVID? Did you get COVID?
I never had COVID. No, my dad
You never
did at
had
one
COVID.
point.
Did you get the vaccine?
I did get the vaccine.
Well, then we share something. We've never gotten COVID, although we don't share something. I never got the vaccine.
Wow.
Now, how is it that I never got COVID, and I never got the vaccine? Now, I do think that I got COVID prior to the lockdowns, but I was told no, that couldn't have been COVID. So I'm like, okay, I guess I never got COVID, and I never took the vaccine.
Either
Nobody
you
ever
did get
died around me.
COVID and you had natural immunity, or you just got lucky and didn't get COVID. And
I've met a lot of people that have gotten lucky, especially a lot of young people. Young people who were forced to stay at home. Students. I mean, we had an editor that was working for us. They stayed in their apartment for like a year. Only went out. These were like healthy 30-somethings. I'm like, why are they doing this? I had a niece that stayed at home. It kind of broke her. She committed suicide. So
okay.
I know what it was about. The COVID lockdowns were not about COVID, because children and babies and young people, I don't know really statistically any group other than old people and people with comorbidities like obesity who die from pneumonia and sepsis and the flu on a regular basis.
We understand the concern. Again, like the concern, and like young people, when they get COVID, are, by the way, like more likely to be asymptomatic and or like have a very mild case. But the concern is, people carry it, and one, that allows the virus to evolve, and two, that allows the virus to spread to people who are old or have comorbidities that could potentially lead to them having a more serious case of COVID or whatever. There were obviously legitimate reasons in 2020.
You have a disease that is so dangerous that you actually don't get symptoms, and then you just give it to grandma.
Young, healthy people. Sometimes.
You know who actually said that early on? Jared Polis, one of the 4 billionaires that helped roll in mail-in balloting in Colorado. Isn't that a coincidence? Isn't that a funny coincidence? Governor Polis,
the justification for the mail-in balloting that we had during 2020 was COVID. Obviously, there were good, legitimate reasons to have mail-in balloting in 2020 because of the COVID stuff. And again, there has never been any type of outcome determinative fraud found. There has never been that. It's been investigated repeatedly. It's been investigated by Trump repeatedly. It's been investigated by people around Trump repeatedly. It's been investigated by Republican state legislators repeatedly. Even like the people in Georgia, for example, watch that OANN video of the ballots supposedly being stuffed in, from suitcases or whatever. I mean, they watched the full video, which what happened,
What was the outcome of that? The suitcases there in Atlanta.
There was never a real thing. Those were just regular ballot boxes that were put there earlier.
Okay, so then you and I are going to agree that whatever a court or a trial says is 100% true. So when
that's not always the case.
No. So when the Senate acquitted Donald Trump twice.
True.
Because what did they impeach him for the second time? What did they impeach him for the second time?
It was whatever incitement to violence in January 6th.
Okay, and then they acquitted him. They acquitted him.
And then I already go over. So
no. They acquitted. You said all the stuff that went through the courts with the mail-in ballots. Whatever the court said, 100%
just
true.
real quick, it's not the case that everything a court says. It's not the case that everything a court says is 100% true. But number one, I do think our judicial system is pretty good. So if I see a court say something like that, I think that's strong evidence that it is true.
Yeah,
I can have reasons. I have reasons to believe in other cases that they gave wrong decisions about certain things or whatever. But secondly, I think that once Trump seeks legal recourse or whatever. Well, number one, the place where the conversation initially started, I'm saying Gore filed a lawsuit or whatever in Florida over legitimate issues and then respected a court decision when it came down. I'm saying Trump is very different in that he didn't do that. He filed a bunch of frivolous lawsuits. Again, even Giuliani, I believe, said some of them were frivolous. That's why most of the lawyers Eastman, Chesborough, Giuliani, they're all in the process of being disbarred and or have been disbarred already. because these were like frivolous lawsuits. And two, they didn't respect the decision. They didn't concede afterwards. After they seeked legal recourse, they had false slates of electors to try to break the ECA. They admitted that they planned to break the ECA, and then. Again, the reason Trump was acquitted. Just real quick, do you acknowledge
a plan to break the law? A plan to break the law? Because I'm gonna get your founding principles here. Any plan to break the law no matter for whatever reason, is wrong.
No.
Is that correct? So Martin Luther King Jr., when he went and broke the law,
I literally said no. Nothing I said ever. Nothing I said entailed. Nothing I said entailed.
There's no such thing as like.
Nothing
I said.
There's no such
thing as like violating a law you think is wrong.
Nothing I said entailed that violating the law is always wrong, or planning to violate the law is always wrong. It's true.
Okay,
like,
so any kind
you
of
got
civil
me.
disobedience.
There are some cases, okay, where violating the law is good. Okay, in Nazi Germany, I would violate the law to fight the Nazis.
You'd violate the law in Nazi Germany.
But if you like, I want the acknowledgement that they did plan to violate the ECA, which is something Hillary never did.
I don't know.
Gore never did.
I'm not going to acknowledge it. What I'm going to acknowledge is that you put it on the table, and I'll have to go do the research and check it out. So I cannot be a witness to that because I have not seen it with my own eyes. I'm a responsible witness.
Okay.
I don't just say stuff just because I'm. You may be absolutely right. I don't know that. I need to verify that. I can't. I can take like 5 minutes, but we're talking right now, so.
Okay, so I mean, I'll pull up the email in the meantime that where he admits that he wants to break the law. But secondly, like I think obviously it would be the case. Like in this case, violating the law would be bad. Overturning the election that you lost would be bad. I don't, we're supposed to be a democracy. I don't think it's very democratic. That seems to be a pretty bad thing to do, pretty authoritarian thing to do.
I know, just like wiretapping a president when he's coming in, very
it's
very
not
bad.
Just like that though, right?
Running a fake impeachment to do your end. They
impeachment.
How many times have they ran? 3 times, right? There was the Ukraine call too. How'd that
it was only 2. That was the first impeachment.
Yeah, the first impeachment. I lose track. There's so many impeachments against this guy. I've never seen so many impeachment trials initiated by a Congress against a president. And it's also, like, gosh, either he's a super criminal. He's like mastermind. He's like some mastermind who is so evil genius, Dr. like evil, that he needs to be stopped. And yet when Biden got into office, Merrick Garland, an Obama appointee, just went, yeah. Oh, and Merrick Garland. I mean,
these are different because these are in different, impeaching the president or whatever, like, is a political process in and of itself. Like, that's Congress impeaching the president.
Yeah.
When you have someone who left office and is a private citizen, it obviously looks, it looks improper when the executive branch is investigating someone who is a private citizen, but, used to be president or whatever, used to be their opposition. That can look improper. So there are a lot of steps that we take to make it not a political process. That includes having the president not order the DOJ around, which Trump did in his first term and is doing now. That includes having special counsels, which Jack Smith was, and that includes doing things. And I think Merrick Garland went too far in this, even to respect that Trump is a potential political candidate or whatever. And again, I think Merrick Garland went too far in that he, even paused the investigation during the midterms or whatever. But we have a lot of steps to ensure that improper stuff like that doesn't happen. Right now, we see Trump telling the DOJ to target law firms who defended cases against him or whatever. We see Trump, just as a private citizen suing Ann Seltzer and suing ABC over stuff, which is obviously an improper use of that office as well.
He won that lawsuit with 60 Minutes.
They settled because they're being sued by the president of the United States,
which means that 60 Minutes deceptively edited things on behalf of Kamala Harris.
No, they settled. Why? That was probably a condition of settlement.
Well, they settled.
Making a statement. But they settled.
Means, right?
They settled for a pretty. I don't remember how much they settled for.
Yeah, why didn't they want to go to court?
Do you recognize
if
Because
why would they settle?
they're being sued by the president of the United States.
Yeah, and if they cared about democracy, they would.
I don't think they.
If Hitler sued them, would they just go like, you know what? I know he's killing the Jews on the edge of town, but we'll just settle because we don't want to go to court.
I think the people being sued by Trump should fight harder. But I recognize these are profit maximizing companies. These are profit maximizing companies that say, and whose shareholders say, I would rather settle this lawsuit for, I think it was like $16 million or whatever, than have the president of the United States, who's already shown he's willing to, do what? Threaten to either, he's threatened multiple times to revoke like broadcast licenses to people like MSNBC. The FCC commissioner went on Benny Johnson's fucking podcast and said, hey, Jimmy Kimmel, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way, okay? So Trump has already shown he's willing to do things like this, and they decided it'd be easier to settle for $16 million than to have the president of the United States be on the bad side.
Let's go back to the parable of Jesus. There were the guys who said something and then did another, and then there were guys that said no, and then they went ahead and they did it. So again, it's like Trump. You keep saying Trump did this, said this, but he didn't. He didn't do anything. Did he? I mean, is Jimmy Kimmel still on the air?
There have been things he has. Again,
is Jimmy Kimmel still on the air?
Yeah, but only because there were a lot of protests over it. A lot of people canceled their Disney Plus subscription, and there are still local networks. There are still local networks which aren't playing Jimmy Kimmel. But
that's their choice. That's their choice.
Why are they making that choice? Though?
Sinclair as the. I worked for a TV station, and that actually these are little things that people don't realize. That ABC, the affiliates actually have to pay the network to air Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
So, it used to be the other way, but network affiliates are in such trouble with the fact that everybody's watching YouTube and not watching the nightly news. That's more, that has more to do with them not carrying Kimmel, I bet. Than anything.
Why do you think? Do you think they wouldn't have been carrying, or like they would have been carrying Kimmel, still if it wasn't for the threats that the FCC commissioner made?
No, they probably had on their to-do list, start cutting shows that don't make money for us and that we're having to pay for, and we're losing money on these shows. Jimmy Kimmel's ratings
seems
are
like
not that great. I don't know
seems
if
like
you know that.
Really weird timing, but okay.
Really weird timing. Hey, you know what? That's called? What is that called? Coincidence is not causality.
I mean, you literally, Trump literally tweeted out afterwards, right?
No. Correlation is not causality.
I'm aware.
That's a correlation.
We understand it's evidence. It's clearly evidence of causality.
No, it's not. Correlation is not causality. You believe that, don't you?
It's like evidence.
I keep on hearing that.
You understand?
I keep on hearing that from Republicans.
You understand?
I mean, from Democrats.
The fact that they were carrying Jimmy Kimmel and until the FCC commissioner made it threats or whatever.
Correlation is not
evidence.
Causality.
That is evidence of causality there, and there's more evidence in that Trump literally came out and said on True Social, right, that I can't believe Jimmy Kimmel got his job back. I was told by ABC that his show was canceled or whatever.
So Trump is such an authoritarian that when ABC defied his will, he's a real Saddam Hussein, He just rounded up all the ABC execs and just.
Why are you acting like the president has to do the most dictator authoritarian thing to be an authoritarian? We live in a democracy. These norms, these laws are they're eroded slowly.
I don't know.
These are still unprecedented things Trump is doing.
I'm coming from a place where Bill Clinton went and his DOJ fired upon Waco and killed all those people. How about that?
That's not even. I don't even know if Bill Clinton. I don't know if Bill Clinton even had that much. I don't know how much Bill Clinton was involved directly with Waco at all. The FBI obviously made mistakes in the Waco raid. Nobody doesn't accept that. But that's not the president. That's not at all comparable. That's not
going in and destroying it, or Bush.
No, those were I forget. I don't remember the details of the Waco raid. Those were religious nuts, right? That wasn't the president. That's not at all comparable.
are you going to blame the Patriot Act on Donald Trump too? The fact that we finally can keep our shoes on. It's been 20 some
True.
years.
Wow.
We finally can keep our shoes on when we take an airplane.
Okay.
And it's
I don't
like
think
so
the
is Donald
Patriot
Trump
in some
also
like
for one of the most authoritarian moves in recent history?
the Patriot, like I don't entirely like the Patriot Act. Like I think you can classify as to some degree authoritarian, but I think it's very different. Like that, it's a law that was passed through Congress, that was passed through the legal channels or whatever. There are still restrictions on, exactly what the NSA can do, but they can. I mean, there are sort of ways you can get around
That
them.
was so authoritarian. In fact, you know what? During
but
COVID,
hold on, you recognize
during the COVID
you
lockdown,
recognize.
Well, hold on. How about Gavin Newsom with his lockdowns? How bad he was here in California? Or
A governor like invoking emergency powers during a pandemic. A governor invoking emergency powers during a pandemic to try to make sure people are like safe and healthy or whatever. Even if in hindsight, he went too far. I don't remember. I don't know what California did exactly, but probably went too far or whatever. That's in a different. That's even if you want to classify it as authoritarian, that's in a very different category of authoritarian than like the president ordering the DOJ to do things like sue people, like law firms who he believes has wronged him. Invoking the Alien Enemies Act to be able to deport people without due process, bringing a ton of independent agencies under his control, trying to even bring the Federal Reserve under his control. These are like in entirely different categories of like authoritarian behavior, right?
Yeah, no, I'm just comparing apples to apples here. Gavin Newsom, and you're telling me it's apples to oranges because there was a pandemic at the time, when I'm like, no, this is just cover for mail-in balloting. It's very obvious to me. Because
Okay, but you recognize
the next thing I knew, we were all getting ready for mail-in balloting, and then all these people went out and protested for COVID. I'm sorry, protested racism. That was so weird. Suddenly, you had to be all masked up to go to the grocery store, but to fight racism, you could be fine. And then it was really weird because all the social media started clamping down on free speech. I myself got stuff shut down on free speech. I put a little meme up in 2020 there, making fun of BLM and COVID and saying if you wanted to have like 4th of July, just put up BLM posters and you can have it. All right, and that got taken down by Facebook. It got taken down by Twitter at the time. It's like really weird. That was like real authoritarian kind of behavior. That was authoritarian, my friend.
You recognize this is like a very fundamental like social contract thing that like there is some trade-off between freedom and security, and we want the government to generally have in times of like emergencies more power to do things or whatever to even if it involves taking away some freedom to make sure that we have some security. In the case of COVID, that was, you can do whatever conspiracy stuff you want, but that was like a pretty unprecedented pandemic, and we didn't even know exactly how serious it would be when we had to first started doing the lockdowns or whatever.
Okay, so let's compare
Trump,
apples to apples.
That's very different. That's very different than Trump as the executive president. It's not even just a governor in one state doing this. This is the president of the United States during peacetime invoking the Alien Enemies Act. That's a wartime power. I don't know how many economic emergencies we're in to institute a ton of different tariffs on every single country across the board. You go through. I'm sure we can go through and read like every frivolous emergency declaration Trump has used to justify giving himself more power within the executive branch or over other people as well.
So let me kind of compare and contrast here. During COVID, people who went to the beach were arrested. Citizens who went to the beach were arrested. During Trump, people who broke immigration laws are being arrested. And
they were denied due process. Well, they were technically arrested, but they were also denied due process. I was just like, which do you think poses a bigger threat to like our existing norms and institutions?
People being arrested for going to the beach because of an order that the public safety is so important that you can't even go to the beach. And the justification is a virus that if you actually go outside as an asymptomatic person and you're alone at the beach and not causing any problems, that's somehow you're violating the law.
Okay, which do you think is a bigger threat to our norms, to our constitution, to the democracy we have in this country? One, a governor arresting people because, you know, during a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic, we had lockdowns. Or two, the president of the United States frivolously invoking wartime authority to deport some 200 immigrants without due process, as the Supreme Court has even ruled. They did not have a right to seek habeas. They were deported to Saqqat.
Okay, are they working that out? Let me ask you, are they working that out in the courts?
Some of them, but the Supreme Court already ruled that, again, these people were denied due process. Some of them were in Saqqat. And then the president will say, actually, once you're in Saqqat, once you're in El Salvador, you're not subject to the U.S. law anymore.
Are we talking about the MS-13 guy?
No. Well, I mean, I'm not talking about that guy. Right? I'm not talking about that guy right here. I'm talking about the 200 immigrants that were deported in the first Alien Enemies Act deportations. But he was obviously also deported wrongly.
Oh, okay. So is that still working in the courts, or is it? I don't follow everything that you do. So
the Supreme Court ruled.
So educate me. Where is that in the courts today? Is it still working its way through the courts, or has the Supreme Court decided on it?
The Supreme Court did decide on it. They said Trump has to facilitate. He was wrongly deported, and Trump has to facilitate his return. Eventually, he was returned, and I think now
the guy was returned.
Well, only after they had new charges against him.
Followed the order from the Supreme
not
Court.
exactly. So because Trump did it immediately, there's dispute over what the term facilitate means, and I never did a deep dive in this case or whatever. But Trump basically once that ruling was handed down and said, I actually don't have to do anything. I just have to, if El Salvador offers him back or whatever, you know, send a plane to pick him up or whatever. That's how I'm interpreting the word facilitate. And I think more reasonably, facilitate probably implies at least some active duty or whatever to at least ask for him back. Trump didn't seem to do that. It was only after there were new charges pressed against him or whatever that the U.S. requested his return so we could try him here.
Okay, so the U.S. has actually requested that the guy come back.
Only after.
So that he face.
But not because of the Supreme Court order. He didn't do that because of the Supreme Court order. He did that only after. I think there were new charges they wanted to press against him. But regardless, it does, that's one case.
So again, Trump is actually trying to bring this guy back. Why can't he bring him back? Is Bukele not giving him up or something? Or
well, he could have brought him back, but Trump didn't want to.
Trump didn't want to. Okay, yeah, this is like parsing hairs. Because again,
this is not parsing hairs. That's not the president. I don't want to say full on violating because I never did a deep dive, but it's certainly stress testing a Supreme Court order to facilitate someone's return. It's not parsing hairs. It's like a norm that's been broken. And again, I'm talking about there were 200 immigrants who were deported under the Alien Enemies Act. The first group of 230 something immigrants or whatever, they were deported without even initially being informed under what act they were being deported under. They were being loaded onto planes for deportations before the proclamation of the Alien Enemies Act was even made public. It was only because of an emergency TRO that some of them, I think 5 of them, were taken off the planes before the deportations, and then it was for during a hearing on another TRO to prevent other deportees from being deported. The planes took off and deported them. And then the Supreme Court ruled in the future Trump has to actually inform people what they're being deported under and give them a right to seek habeas, which he wasn't doing. And then later, the Supreme Court in another case said, hey, actually, Trump essentially failed to follow through. He only gave immigrants 24 hours to seek habeas relief, and that we have determined that's not enough. You have to give them at least.
Okay, so then did the system? So now is he having to give them habeas?
Well,
is he following that?
He's not. I don't believe he's strictly. I don't believe he's strictly.
I'm trying to figure out what authoritarian, what Darth Vader move did he do?
You don't think it's authoritarian to deport people without giving them the right to seek habeas?
You have violated me. Did he do that? No,
he deported 200 something people to a fucking gulag without due process.
Okay, and then it was taken to the Supreme Court.
And then they said, you deported people without due process. In the future, do better. And then Trump failed to do better.
Okay, and then is that going back to the courts?
there are at any given time 100 different immigration cases pending. I don't think Trump has.
Okay,
I
so
think
that's the problem. Actually, again, you're perseverating on
but
tiny little
I don't know why.
things.
I don't know why you keep
Tiny
saying
little
like.
things that when you have to look
But
at
you
the systemic breakdown.
recognize number one, even the fact that Trump deported immigrants while there was still like the verbal order to not deport immigrants or whatever for the second emergency TRO, which was supposed to prevent the deportation of like the other 200 immigrants. Even the fact that like he seemingly ignored that order is like an authoritarian thing to do. But even if we pretend that like every so often the court, settles things out or whatever, it's still authoritarian to deport people without due process to a prison camp, even if later the court.
Wait, now it's a prison camp?
Sakat?
Oh, you're talking about where, in El Salvador?
Yeah, Sakat is a pretty bad place.
Oh, well, okay. All right. So Donald Trump deported people back to El Salvador, and now he is personally responsible.
They weren't even
for
all
going for like, what's he going to do? Like some special forces is going to go in there.
He should have given them the right to seek habeas. It was authoritarian to not give them the right to seek habeas.
All right, you know what? Mistakes were made.
This is like, it's not a mistakes were made thing. This is a very intentional.
Mistakes were made. How is that?
It's not a.
Let me tell
it's
you.
not like a mistake.
Let's measure these things. George Bush gets us involved in two forever wars, creates the Patriot Act. Donald Trump violates his ICE. He didn't do it personally.
Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act personally, number one. And two,
okay, did he have a right to do that? Did he have a right to do that as president?
No, probably not.
Why do you say he didn't?
Because we're not under a foreign invasion from Venezuela.
Oh, okay. So he used a broader interpretation of that act to invoke it. Let me ask you:
that's like factually wrong.
The Supreme Court, in the Supreme Court, you said the Supreme, because I haven't followed this. I can't argue the specifics of this case because I'm not the lawyer in this case, and that's why I try to look at more like, let's look at systemic problems and principles, okay? Because this is like a marriage. You know what a bad marriage does? A bad marriage argues about the laundry. A good marriage knows that there's going to be mistakes with the laundry. Stuff's going to shrink. Stuff's not, stuff's going to get bleach on it. There's going to be problems. Socks and underwear are going to be left in the middle of the room, right? So, if you don't have that kind of wisdom about these things, you're going to perseverate into these tiny little things. And like Luke did on there, was about, he didn't concede. He didn't concede. It's like, dude, in practice, he conceded. He conceded in practice. Donald Trump did not personally go down and violate. No, he invoked a law that he had the right to invoke. You're saying
Probably
he was
not.
off base. And then when it went to the
Supreme Court, his interpretation, I would say, is obviously bad faith interpretation.
As the president, he has the room to interpret, and then our system.
No,
says,
that's not. Well, not really.
He has the room to interpret, and then it's taken to the court system, and they define the interpretation.
And they interpret it. Like Trump had, Trump can.
And you told me the system. You're actually just telling me that the system is working. I mean, you telling me this just
no, I'm not. What do you mean? I'm saying Trump did something. Trump did something authoritarian, and the Supreme Court has even agreed that Trump did something that should be classified as authoritarian. And Trump is continually doing things that I think are authoritarian. You can obviously, number one, you can obviously do things that are authoritarian illegal, but obviously it makes it worse that it's illegal. It makes it worse that he deported people without due process.
That's why I say if you're saying he's got his little sins, his little authoritarian sins here. And they're all here. And no. But you're overlooking all these other greater authoritarian transgressions by Joseph Biden, by Gavin Newsom, by
I don't
Obama.
believe they are greater, and I'm trying to express to you why I don't believe they're greater.
All right. And what I'm offering to you is that you might think they're not greater because, one, maybe you didn't feel the effects of them. Also, it's a little bit of tribalism. So, because look at me, I'm throwing George Bush under the bus. under the bush. I'm
That's not
showing George.
surprise. Yeah, I know. None of you, the MAGA movement. You're not neocons anymore. You're not like it's a like
I
populist.
voted for George Bush.
It's like a populist
I
movement.
changed my
Yeah,
mind
but
on
the
George
movement
Bush
the movement has
and John
fundamentally
McCain.
changed. The tribe has changed. The principles of the tribe have changed. Okay, it's not surprising that you're throwing.
That's called human development. It is called maturity, where you realize, you know what? I think it was a mistake that we went into Iraq. We're still there. Why did I believe that? Oh yeah, that's right. Weapons of mass destruction. That's right. Girls couldn't go to school in Afghanistan. That's right. 9/11. I wonder if 9/11 was an inside job. See? Though that kind of actual discourse is mature. There's a lot of maturity in the MAGA movement, actually. Now, I'm not saying it's all mature. There are people out there that are like, Donald Trump can do whatever. That's why I call myself a pragmatist. I love Donald Trump. I think he's disrupting the system in good ways. I think he's solving problems by having tough solutions and looking at solutions that other people were unwilling to implement. And but I hate it when he's wrong. I hate it when he's wrong, and I'm the first to admit when he's wrong. I just
Okay.
don't admit that he's wrong based on accusations against him, because I know that there is a systemic habit of the left accusing him for everything. And then you know what? It's like Donald Trump said, they're not coming after him. They're coming after me.
True.
I get accused of stuff.
True.
I get accused of stuff so falsely. I get accused of stuff by other Republicans.
So I just I don't want to get it. Just real quick. Is the 9/11 an inside job thing ironic or what is that? What are we doing there?
I don't know. You tell me. What do you think about 9/11?
I don't think 9/11 was an inside job, and I don't think it's a sign of maturity to believe that it was an inside job. But okay.
Well, you know what? Who thinks it's an inside job? My brother-in-law, who is super liberal.
Wow.
Thinks Donald Trump is an authoritarian, and actually thinks that George Bush, John McCain, all the Republicans are super authoritarian, and Donald Trump is just the worst of it. And so he hates Donald Trump more than anybody I know. He believes it's an inside job.
Okay, I was just curious.
Do I believe it's an inside job? I don't know. Building 7 fell down kind of weird, but I don't know.
Okay, cool.
I
think obviously, the principles of the MAGA movement are very different than the ones that were associated with George Bush or Reagan or many of the older Republicans. So it's not at all surprising that people throw people under the bus or whatever. I don't think that's a sign of maturity or stuff or whatever. I think that's just because the principles are so different. Like it's a much more like populist, Republican MAGA principles than like actual traditional conservative principles. But I guess we've been on this point for like an hour 15 minutes now. I do want to talk about the economy because you did mention mention that as well. But I guess it just as the final thing I want to say, and you could say a final thing on this topic too if you want to respond.
I'll give you the final word. It's your house. You say
sure. I think like clearly Trump has deprived people of due process. I think clearly that's an authoritarian thing to do, regardless of whether or not it was legal. It makes it even worse that it wasn't legal, and it makes it even worse that after the court said that he had to give these immigrants the right to seek habeas, he effectively failed to do so by making it really hard for them to do so within the time span that he actually allotted them to do so. And I think obviously any of the attacks that we see with Trump ordering the DOJ to go after law firms, or him personally suing people, or him even doing things like schedule off appointments to give himself more power within the executive branch. All those things represent authoritarian things to varying degrees of legality. Schedule off appointments might be legal, but it's still authoritarian. But the economy, I guess.
The economy. Okay.
I mean, I'll tell you, the way I view it, I guess, and then you can point out where you disagree with me here. I mean, I think, in general, the president like is not going to have a ton of control over the economy. And that's, that kind of slices both ways. So it's true of Biden. A lot of the job growth that we saw under Biden wasn't necessarily because of anything Biden did, just because of more general factors. What Congress does matters, what the Federal Reserve does matters, what the private market on its own does matters as well. But all the policy Trump is actually doing is like pretty overwhelmingly bad. I think him trying to take control of the Federal Reserve, him saying that I'm going to go after Lisa Cook, I'm going to put my own person there, I'm going to have, I mean, in his words, he said he wants a majority of his people on the Federal Reserve board, and he, has publicly threatened Jerome Powell several times and asked him to lower interest rates. I think that's all bad. I think having an independent Federal Reserve is probably much better than having a Trump-controlled Federal Reserve. I think the tariffs that he's are doing are, quite clearly pretty bad. I don't think there's any reasonable defense of the universal style tariffs that he is doing. I think all the evidence suggests that they have been bad historically and are bad now. And then the big beautiful bill, I don't like corporate taxes particularly, and I don't like income taxes that much either. But it's probably a net bad to increase the debt as much as it does. And also do a bunch of cuts on the welfare spending that we do, which I do think that, spending is important.
All right. So I'm not an economist. I don't track the economy like I do these other issues. But I will say I'm going to use just some like bigger picture metrics. Okay. Okay. We're in a bad situation right now economically. Like Los Angeles is very depressed. If we can feel it. Prices are high. Unemployment in the entertainment industry is at record highs. It's really hard here. Rents are up. The fires here decimate a lot of stuff. So yeah, is Donald Trump able to fix all that? Well, no, he's not God. He's not like, I agree. I used to think that the president did nothing for the economy, and I would vote that way, and that was wrong. The president can do things to affect the economy, right? And
I agree. It's just, I don't think the effect is typically that big, but
right, yeah. So, but most people do vote on economic issues for some reason, and they do give the president a lot of blame. It's the old measuring stick of are you in a better shape than you were 4 years ago? Well, see, here was the deal: is that in 2020, most people were in better shape than they were in 2016. Now, some of the stuff that Obama did, yeah, sure, of course, some of that stuff. I think my general understanding of it, it was a very slow recovery, and I lived it. I lived in a slow recovery. I know that starting in 2017, my personal career started doing much better. I went from, here in the entertainment industry, I went from having an IMDb page that was like this to like this, and getting into the PGA because there was work, and there was like a trickle down effect with the work. There was so much work here that I was getting calls like, hey, I can't do this job. Can you do this job? And there were opportunities, and the industry was really flourishing around me. Okay. Now I'll give credit where Donald Trump can give credit to, because one of the big factors in our economic problem is the way that previous administrations and the marketplace bent over for China. We opened up to China, and the next thing you know, all our manufacturing is over there, and and China's doing great. Even the patent system is being undermined by China, right? And then you have and then of course you have things like taxes and everything. But when they shut down the economy in 2020, they did that, the Democrats, I will say, the Democrats pushed that. The whole COVID lockdowns again were there to simply undermine the good economy. That's un-American what they did. That's un-American. So when I hear people going like, Donald Trump's tariffs aren't going to work, I'm like, I don't know whether tariffs are going to work or not. I think nobody can really say whether they're going to work or not until you actually implement them, because it's kind of all theoretical. It's economists putting out white papers until you actually do it and put it into the real world. But he has the willingness to actually try different things and to try unorthodox things. So even when he's like saying, like with the entertainment industry, I'm going to put a tariff on movies that are made out, I'm like, you know what? That might actually work, because so much of production is going to places like Bulgaria, you know? Like I have a friend, he was out of town for a couple of weeks. I go, you know, it was like, where's he going? Bulgaria. I'm like, oh, he didn't tell anybody he was, you know, he didn't say he was going to Bulgaria to shoot a movie, but everybody knew he's going to Bulgaria to shoot a
Sure.
movie. Right. Okay. So who caused that? Gavin Newsom, right? Caused all the, just put state of California on lockdown, crash the economy overnight. And then everybody starts going, we're going to print a bunch of fake money and start giving that out. Who thought that was a good idea, to put a bunch of paper money into the system? Tell,
Hmm.
like, productive, like, this is not, again, I'm not an economist, but I have enough of a basic understanding to know that economies need production. All these economic theories are about the means of production. And when you take away the means of production, you just take away your entire economy. So I'm
Okay.
like, right, I'm like, what the heck? Like, so again, I appreciate the fact that he is doing things that are, you know, like Scott. I'm not a fan of Scott Bessent. I don't like that whole thing that happened with the big beautiful bill and Elon Musk. I was on
All
Team
right.
Elon. I
Okay.
was on
At least
Team
there's
Elon.
that.
Again, I'm a pragmatist. I love Donald Trump, but when he got into a fight with Elon, I'm like, why don't you listen to Elon? He's got a better idea of how the economy works, because he actually like built companies. And all Trump says is, Elon, you know, I took away the EVs, and no, that had nothing to do with it. So I'm the first again to point out, like, Donald Trump, what are you doing? But at the same time, he did way more than Joe Biden ever did for the economy. He did, and again, I'll just take my own life from that. We're in a recession because of what the Democrats did to the economy. We
I
were
mean,
on upswing.
we're not even in a recession now. But just to touch on a few things before we get to that.
We're not in an official recession, but there definitely are markers for a recession.
Well, maybe, but I think
Yeah.
most of that's because of stuff Trump has done. But so I think with regards to the bending over for China and stuff or whatever, and our manufacturing's gone. I like, obviously previous administrations were more friendly to trade with China than Trump was, and I think Trump did kind of shift how much it's talked about or whatever, which allowed Biden to also have some sort of less free trade with China, which I'll get into in a second. But I think I think trade with China like is almost certainly a net positive. It's good that the U.S. is able to buy cheap goods from China, while our own resources are able to focus on higher skill, higher productivity sectors or whatever. I think when you put a bunch of tariffs on China, outside of maybe a few specific national security things, you just overwhelmingly hurt the economy. And we see this from Trump's first term as well. Like, we have I don't think all the stuff about tariffs is theoretical. We have Trump, who did tariffs in his first term, and Obama did tariffs, and there's a bunch of countries all across the world who have had varying amounts of tariffs at varying times, and economists have looked at the evidence from these things and done empirical research on it and determined that tariffs tend to be overwhelmingly negative. Even for tariffs in Trump's first term, we saw that the tariffs he placed on Chinese steel, for example, and other countries' steel as well, not only those leads to a decrease in net employment, but they led to a decrease in employment even within the manufacturing industry, because although it might have protected 1,000 or still steel jobs, there are a lot of manufacturing companies in the U.S. which rely on steel, and when steel got more expensive, they could hire less people. So it probably actually cost roughly 80,000 jobs in steel consuming industries. So it was a net decrease even within manufacturing, not accounting for service sector stuff as well, of like 79,000 of jobs or whatever. And there's just a bunch of other studies looking at tariffs all over the world that say find similar effects on negative for growth, negative for productivity, negative for just about everything. And also prices.
It's funny that you mentioned steel, okay? Because I actually grew up in a steel town. I grew up in the largest steel manufacturing town west of the Mississippi, Pueblo, Colorado. that was a bustling town in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and then in the 80s, it crashed. It's never recovered. It's never recovered from what happened. It's still a steel town, but you know, it was like when Billy Joel came out with that song Allentown. I was like, yeah, I'm living it. That was in the 80s. Okay.
Hmm.
So you see that there are systemic problems that are Trump is trying to do something about, right? And if it doesn't work, you know, he's inherited a lot of crap, like the whole oil thing. You
Well, I
know,
think
like
before we can talk about oil, but
I mean,
before
he
we get
did.
to, I want to just reply to the like steel town thing real quick. Like, I think for one, I think people like way overestimate how much trade actually caused, you know, the decline in manufacturing. Um, you know, there was like obviously automation plays a big role too. A lot of factories have just automated their work, and it's not necessarily due to trade. That's why if you look at, you know, if you look at like American manufacturing employment, it's a relatively steady trend line. You know, you don't see big jumps, you know, big decreases whenever we had free trade with Mexico and Canada, and when we signed free trade with, you know, China or whatever. Like if you know, if you draw a trend line from like 1960 to 1980, before we were a particularly free trading country, and like project it out 30 years, it can like almost exactly predict the share of manufacturing employment in 2010. And you know, we see across countries, countries tend to follow like a inverted U hump shaped path of manufacturing employment. You know, it'll peak at it'll initially increase, peak at some point, and then start decreasing. Even China has this. China has lost, you know, some 100 million manufacturing jobs in the past 20 years because they are also automating their stuff. This has a lot to do with like very like fundamental sort of consumer spending patterns and productivity differences across sectors. Trade is probably responsible for maybe, I think the best estimates say about 16% of the decline in the manufacturing share of employment. And, you know, a lot of things, trade it specifically obviously falls into this, but some other things too, will have like sort of concentrated losses, but overall benefits. So it is true, like, you know, in the cases where we'll say like a factory was outsourced due to trade, due to free trade or whatever, it could be the case that the people in those towns, you know, are hurt by that, obviously. But overall, like everyone else in America has access to, you know, cheaper goods now. The resources previously being used in that town's factory now go to other, you know, other places where they are, you know, more highly valued and presumably more productively used. Export industries are helped because, you know, when we buy goods with American dollars, other countries then use those American dollars to buy U.S. exports and stuff. So there are a lot of cases where, you know, we would see concentrated losses but diffuse benefits, and the diffuse benefits are like you know, outweigh the concentrated losses. And I think when we say like Trump is willing to do something about this problem, I mean, you know, I think the what Trump is doing is just like overwhelmingly negative, probably even for manufacturing, because, you know, a lot of manufacturers rely on imported goods. I don't think it's okay to like good to like do something when it's something you're doing is like incredibly counterproductive. It is like the uncertainty caused by the invocation and repeal of a bunch of, you know, different tariffs is definitely harming the economy. I think if Trump is doing something bad and all the evidence says it's bad, I'm going to say it's bad. I'm not going to say, you know, at least he's doing something.
Okay, no, I get what you're saying, that, you know, it's like, you know, doing something bad is not necessarily good, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, doing something is not necessarily good. Sometimes, well, he has to do something though. Okay, and no, what I told you is what I appreciate is his willingness to think outside the box. That's what I appreciate about him. You know, like when it came to the immigration problem, he went, you know what, I'm going to build a wall. You know, it was like, wow, that's some like Pat Buchanan said, but everybody just kind of thought it was crazy. Maybe we should do it. You know, and then, well, lo and behold, he's actually like put immigration policies into place that has helped. It's like really put those immigration numbers down to the floor, right? Whereas during Biden, see, because again, it's not just the piddly little actions; it's the principles and the
Mm-hmm.
character of leadership behind our leaders that's most important, because leaders will make mistakes. Donald Trump will make mistakes, but let's compare that to the mistakes that were made by Joe
But this
Biden.
is like, this is not a like small itty bitty like mistake or whatever caused by thinking outside of the box too hard. This is like a very like fundamentally like stupid idea. It seems to be like all the evidence says it's bad. All the evidence says it's already hurting our economy. It's already raising prices for consumers, and no economist ever would ever recommend you do anything even approaching this. You know, there are economists who will support, you know, some amount of tariffs, but no one would ever say tariff all of our allies, tariff every good coming into the country across the board at least 10%, 60% for China, and, you know, whatever, 15% for the EU, all the different rates for different countries.
Right,
like
right. So again, you know, I'm not an economist. I'm not studying the economy all the time. And again, like you said, a president can only have so much effect because there is like that invisible hand. There's like a greater flow that economy has that one person cannot just put their hands on and change it.
That's true, but I think that's like I think Trump is probably unique in the amount of sort of harm him himself can do to the economy with this issue, because never before have we had a president be able to unilaterally at his whim, like, you know, raise taxes. Like, technically that's one of like the largest tax hikes in the last like 30 years. Like, that's not something the president is usually able to do. Usually only Congress is able to actually pass that legislation, and Trump is like keeps turning tariffs off and back on again. That causes a lot of uncertainty. I would say like this is an area where the president actually does have, you know, way too much control over the over the economy. He probably shouldn't have that power.
That's why it's, again, it's important to not just perseverate on those little tiny things. Okay, like, yes, is his tariff thing not working? I don't know. I can't really speak to that, right? But I can speak to the fact that what happened during the lockdowns was disastrous, and that was a huge impact to the economy, the entire United States economy, that was led by Democrat politicians.
Well, I mean,
that was,
Trump was president at the time. You can obviously say there were a lot of Democrat.
Right. And did he
governors.
shut down California? Did he
well,
shut
no,
down California?
You can say there were a lot of Democrat governors, but at the same time, we also saw. Well, no, but we also saw one. I don't think. To my knowledge, it wasn't.
I know you guys. No, that's the thing. This is where I see the intellectual dishonesty. It's like Donald Trump has some tariffs and prices of eggs are going up, and like this is really bad. But then when it comes to you know, Gavin Newsom or Cuomo shutting down the states and completely eviscerating economies, and Congress just going along and rolling out, suddenly it's like, yeah, but they were justified in doing it because we were facing a virus that was killing old people.
I mean, it killed like what 2 million people in the U.S. or whatever. But regardless, like obviously, I was just about to get into. I don't view these things as anywhere close to.
We did not have to. I lost my sister.
Mm-hmm.
She had cancer. Now, of course, actually, she died before the lockdowns, and we were in the ICU room with her when she died. Now, according to the logic behind the lockdowns, she should have been isolated. We should not have been in there with her when she died. And even according to people in my own family, she's like, well, she didn't die from COVID, despite having all the COVID symptoms. And also, what actually also maybe killed her was they stuck a ventilator in her, and she died because the ventilator couldn't overcome the COVID, and it punctured a hole in her lung, and then she blew up, and then she had mini strokes. This was all part and parcel of COVID, right? So she died, but it was really funny. We left all the people that were in that ICU room went home, right? And then a month later, half of them locked down and never died from COVID, and the other half did not lock down and also never died from COVID. So, but we were all impacted by an economic catastrophe that was man-made.
I mean, obviously,
not by Donald Trump. Not by Donald Trump. He said, "Don't lock down to this."
Right, but I think if you like, I don't have the data on hand or anything, but I don't think like the red states who did lock down as heavily. I mean, obviously they did still do plenty of lockdowns. Like it didn't seem like they had any like faster recovery rates than the blue states or anything.
Oh, they
and you
did.
can just look at across the world
Florida
as well.
back. That's
I mean,
why people love Ron DeSantis.
I mean, Ron DeSantis did lockdowns too, but every country across the world, even those who had like less strict lockdowns, also had the same economic crisis. And the U.S. actually came out looking pretty good compared to them. Like we had the highest like GDP growth in like the G7 countries, post COVID. We have our unemployment rate was really low. Immediately post COVID, it was like under 4% for some 20 something straight months. We had a really tight labor market.
What was it before COVID?
I think it bottomed out at like 3.5 or something.
Okay, all right. So it was actually higher than before COVID. So you can't say it was lower.
No,
I think actually higher. It was actually I'm saying
unemployment immediately post COVID. We had a really tight labor market, and unemployment stayed below 4% for I think it's like 27 straight months or something. Yeah. That's relatively.
That's because people went back to work. Here was the other deal, though.
But I'm saying, exactly. But I'm saying that's an indicator.
Landlords lost money
of a good economy.
Businesses went out of business. Like like I got to tell you, I felt it on a daily basis. My hair, the lady who cut my hair, she went out of business. She actually died. She was never the same after she took the COVID shot, and she really was stressed out because she was trying to hold her business open. My favorite restaurant place closed. I had land. The place I was living in, the owners, the apartment, they sold it to the government, and they took over, and the quality of life there dropped. Yeah, no. There were a lot of bad things. Hollywood crashed completely. Yeah, I mean, there were so many bad things that happened because of Gavin Newsom. So many bad things.
What I'm saying is,
you're telling me that Trump's kind of like experimenting with tariffs, and it's up 3%, down 2%.
I'm saying two things.
That's totally like that. That's the real problem.
The two things I'm saying is that one, obviously, I believe that they were. A lot of these lockdown policies were justified and they'd probably say lies were probably net benefits. And two, I'm saying that I'm saying two, we see even it's not as if countries that there are other factors like people on their own would not want to go out as much, would not want to do things as much without because of the COVID virus. And that's why you see, I don't believe that states or countries that had less strict lockdown policies had significantly better recoveries, which is why also is worth mentioning the U.S. came out of COVID in a really good position compared to other countries. We had higher GDP growth than
California. This is not again, I'm living this. I see this every day. It's everything. I have friends that were fired in the entertainment industry. I have teacher friends. I have firefighter friends that were fired because they did not take the vaccine. They violated the vaccine mandate. Under Gavin Newsom, under LA County, under Joe Biden, they weren't given religious exemptions. They weren't given health exemptions.
That doesn't seem even assuming that's true. It doesn't seem relevant to the 3 points I'm making.
You keep on telling me that Trump is so bad because tariffs.
Well, if you would let me get through the points I'm making is one, I obviously do believe these things could be justified on the basis of having it actual genuine real pandemic and emergency. Number two,
I'd like to see a real pandemic.
Okay, true.
I hope I never
see
a real pandemic
we came out of COVID.
Did not see one. I didn't see one during my lifetime.
We came out of COVID relatively strong. We had a good, I think we still have an overall good economy, but we had a good economy. Unemployment was really low. Inflation was a problem, but inflation more or less, returned to close to target by 2023, by the latter half of 2023. Now that Trump is in office, it's not as if the tariffs that he's doing are going to necessarily, at least immediately, cause as much damage as an entire global pandemic. But it's the case that the tariffs he's doing are unprecedented and really bad. I'm upset at Trump for, number one, I think he is either personally or people around it just have very misinformed views about what trade deficits actually are and what tariffs actually do. Trump repeatedly lies to people about other countries are being the ones to pay tariffs or whatever. you know, it all seems like a misinformed viewer trade, like a fundamentally mercantilist viewer trade. And then on that like really dumb basis, he's doing really bad policy, which is tariffs, which have been negatively affecting growth. We had a contraction in Q1 GDP, have been probably negatively affecting payrolls. Like uncertainty caused by tariffs is probably a big driver of why you see, hiring slow down. Like I think it's totally fair to be upset about a president doing like unprecedentedly bad policy in a time where there's not any national emergency that would come anywhere close to justifying it.
Okay, let me ask you a favor or a question. Is there anything that Trump has done right?
This term?
This term, last term, anything that he's done right with the economy?
Oh, I mean, with the economy, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
the economy's very complex.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think I like I don't know if the bills were net good necessarily, but like I like that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and the Big Beautiful Bill, they both allow basically like full expensing of business investment. I think that's good. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act moved closer to like it was called like horizontal equity, where like we have basically no matter where you get your income from, it's taxed at pretty similar rates or whatever. I think those two things are good, but I don't think they're super consequential. And I wish, I think the Big Beautiful Bill has a lot of other stuff in it I don't like. The Tax and Jobs Act might have been net bad and might have been net good. I don't have a strong opinion on it.
Okay, so let's take I want you to take like a net effect, like throw it all in a pot. Your tariffs, his tariff stuff, his Jobs Act, the Big Beautiful Bill. What do you think? It's like evened
it's
out,
definitely been, it's been net bad.
Worse.
Yeah,
it's worse because the tariffs are that bad.
Well, the tariffs and the fact that like this doesn't like probably affect things in the real economy that much yet, but I would say the threats about the Federal Reserve certainly. I think the Big Beautiful Bill is not bad.
Or is he actually doing something with the Federal Reserve, or is he putting pressure on the Federal? Is he putting pressure on the Federal Reserve, or is he actually taking action to dismantle or audit it or anything? I mean, a lot of his supporters want him to do a full-on audit and close it down. Is he doing that?
Well, not quite, but he's publicly threatening Jerome Powell and asking him to lower interest rates. Which is
he physically threatening? Did he like put a gun to, or did he go like, "Hey, no, you better do this, or else"?
I mean, what did he do? Has publicly like he's done a number of times. So like he'll post on Truth Social at 3 a.m. sometimes as Jerome Powell is too late and he needs to go. He's also done like press conferences with Jerome Powell right next to him saying that he wants him to lower interest rates. He has personally called Jerome Powell privately to ask him to lower interest rates. He has said openly in public that he wants.
A president has no authority, no room to ask the Fed to lower an interest rate. None. The president can't.
Should not. They're not supposed to. No, the Federal Reserve.
No president has ever done that before.
There's been like one president who has done it before, and it was really bad when he did it too. And it was privately behind closed doors. It was Nixon, I believe.
Okay, asked if he could, and then actually, isn't the head of the Fed put in there by the president?
They're appointed by the president, but the Federal Reserve is an independent institution that's not meant to operate.
The president actually picks who goes in there.
Yes, but it's an independent. They appoint them, and then the Senate approves them.
And you are 100% behind the Fed. The Fed can do anything.
I think
the Fed is flawless.
What do you mean?
I mean,
no, it's not.
The way that you're talking is that Donald Trump is
I think the Federal Reserve operates a whole lot better.
It's like they're like the resistance. They're resisting tyranny. It's like the way that you have described it. I do think that's what my base Jerome Powell is doing. I don't think the Fed is flawless, but I do think the Federal Reserve operates a whole lot better independently right now than it would under the direction of the President of the United States, because the Federal Reserve, by being like an undemocratic, technocratic institution, is able to make decisions non-politically. It's able to make decisions focused on like the long-term economy. The president has like much worse incentives with regards to having some incentive to just helicopter money in immediately and like give its voters a big check, or like have easy monetary policy to try to bring mortgage rates down, which is probably going to have a lot worse effects in the long run in inflation and uncertainty than lower growth overall. Okay, so like our whole conversation, and the conversation I had with Luke Beasley, right, it's just kind of confirmed to me that on the left, this thing of TDS is real. That
how is this TDS?
It's just like, because it's like whatever Trump does, there's just like it's a net loss. It's bad. He's horrible. He's if a court came out and said Trump did something bad, he did it. If the court said he was exonerated, Mitch McConnell got some backroom deal going.
He
If he
literally
does the
said it. That wasn't even the
tariffs
court.
are
That was the
literally
Senate.
bad
But
because Trump is doing them. Even though
no, tariffs
Trumps
are
have
bad.
been a
Even
part of
I think the
American
tariffs
history
Biden
since the
did were bad
beginning.
too.
Huh?
I think the tariffs Biden did were bad too. I think obviously, like I'm basing my opinion on all these things.
I did not hear all this rhetoric about Biden's tariffs being bad.
Because the scale of them is entirely different. Like Biden did like 25% tariffs on
scale, and then when I bring
Biden did like 25%. Hold on, Biden did like 25% tariffs on like Chinese EVs that like went through the Section 232 review or whatever. Trump is unilaterally doing tariffs on the entire world on every product, except for there's certain exemptions for certain things, but like on every product. So it's a way bigger scale. And again, he's doing it unilaterally, immediately.
The difference is unilateral.
That is
Biden did it with
that's not the only difference.
Approval.
There's a difference between one, the scale, and two, the way they're being implemented. So one, the fact that it's on everyone and everything, and two, the fact that although Biden like did I think Biden did Section 232 tariffs or whatever. Trump is doing a large portion of his tariffs are IEEPA tariffs, which might not even be constitutional. The Supreme Court is hearing that case right now, and those are done without any review. Those don't have any time limit. Those are subject to being changed at the president's whim. That is a difference too. Yes.
So when Biden does tariffs, he's got an excuse for doing it. You know what this reminds me of?
I think that, to be clear, I think that
you know Tara Reid is?
No.
This is what reminds me of Tara Reid when Donald Trump was grabbing women by the pussy and doing this, and and E. Jean Carroll, he was like, we had to tear apart society. I mean, movie executives were going to prison. Kevin Spacey everybody was getting Me Too'd, and Kavanaugh, man, they were hammering him hard. And the moment Joe Biden has a Me Too, and by the way, I always think of that Al Franken. He got Me Too'd for a joke.
Do you think like if you see someone like if you see a politician like kicking a puppy, and then you see another politician like breeding dogs just to throw their babies into a fireplace, and he does this nonstop, do you think you should vote for the politician that kicked a puppy, or vote for the politician that is breeding dogs solely so he can throw their babies into a fireplace?
Okay, so we actually have seen both of these politicians.
But so yeah,
okay, all right. So your premise is based on we have seen these two different acts by an individual that we have witnessed.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that relate to Donald Trump and Joe Biden in their Me Too moment?
Because Biden is the one who kicked a puppy, and Trump is the one who's breeding puppies so he can throw an infinite amount of puppies into a fireplace to burn them alive.
Okay, so you're saying that in your analogy, being caught on tape saying I'm grabbing pussy and raping a woman is like, okay, so no.
Biden having one sexual assault allegation.
Getting caught on tape saying something vulgar is like torturing puppies. Rape is like kicking a puppy.
Biden having one sexual assault allegation, I don't even think she alleged rape, right? Is a whole lot less bad than Trump saying grab him by the pussy, than Trump going into the dressing room with teenage girls, than Trump being best friends with Epstein, than Trump making weird, creepy comments about his daughter repeatedly, than any of the other, than Trump digitally penetrating E. Jean Carroll. What Trump has done is a lot worse with regards to that.
Wait. So you just said Biden. He did not rape her. He sexually assaulted her, which he digitally penetrated her. That's okay. But Donald Trump going in and digitally penetrating a woman is the same as rape. Even though the court, and you said earlier, whatever the court says, I mean, that was, you didn't say that. I assumed that from how you were dealing with the issues. So the court never said that Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. It was the same. It was apples to
Well,
apples.
actually, they did. The judge did say, because there was a counter defamation lawsuit that Trump made or whatever. The judge did say that what he did could colloquially be called rape, but it doesn't meet the legal definition of rape. I thought I might be misremembering the Biden
Okay, so
sexual.
digital penetration, yeah, that's the colloquial version of rape when it's done against a woman's.
Was Biden accused of digital penetration?
Yes.
I don't even.
Yeah, he literally grabbed Tara Reid's pussy.
That's not the same thing as
what? As saying as bragging about it? Like saying you do it and then actually doing it? See, when Biden actually did it, dude, he was like, he's running for president, and we're
no, but Trump actually, I believe
when
Trump
Donald
actually
Trump brags about it. Donald Trump, for all we know, he was just bragging because he has a tiny penis.
Bro. So I believe
maybe he was just.
Wait, so
it's
the allegation that Tara Reid made that Trump or that Biden grabbed her by the pussy and that's it?
Well, that's the funny thing is you didn't really see it in the news because that's a whole other problem with PBS.
Well, I remember
is that the mainstream media, or the legacy media, as Elon calls it, was in against Trump and for Biden. That was a whole part and parcel of the whole COVID crisis too. Is we had the Jimmy Kimmels and the and Saturday Night Live saying we have to go home because it's so serious. We have to go home. And people being shut down to do comedy, just like myself. I'm a nobody. I put up a little comedy meme. It gets shut down by Facebook.
I was just trying to figure out what the allegation was. I don't remember the specific allegation. Trump specifically was accused of digitally penetrating Eugene Carroll, and he was found civilly liable for that. The term you used was just Biden like grabbed her by the pussy or whatever, which is different than penetration. Biden.
No. He digitally penetrated her. That's
okay. Biden having one allegation of digital penetration is the kicking the puppy. Okay, that's different than Trump being found civilly liable for digital penetration. Trump repeatedly making weird comments about his daughter, saying that he would date her. Trump going into teenage girls like dressing rooms at the beauty pageant or whatever. Trump saying the grab them by the pussy comment. I think Trump has like 25 other sexual abuse allegations against him.
Biden was also the creeper who was always hands-on with everybody. And according to his own daughter's supposed diary, did things with her.
I'm not sure that's even true, but okay.
Biden, you didn't hear about that either?
I heard. To be clear, I'm familiar broadly with the Tara Reid scandal. I haven't heard about this allegation, but again, it seems like
of course not, because you're where do you get your news from?
I get mine from a lot of places. I get like New York Times. I see news on Reddit. I see news on Twitter. I get news.
Okay, New York Times, Reddit, right there. Ding ding, totally mainstream narratives.
All left leaning. True.
What else?
Yeah, they're reliable.
X or Twitter?
Well, I said Twitter. It's called X now, or whatever.
Twitter
That's
stuff.
Usually where. A lot of times I see news or whatever on like X or Reddit first, and then the sources I trust are generally like New York Times, Washington Post, like most of the lamestream media allegations. I subscribe to a lot of people on Substack, so I get a decent amount of my news sometimes from the.
That's good.
Primarily economists I subscribe to on Substack, like Krugman, like I read Richard Onani, I read Scott Sumner, I read a lot of on
the economic stuff you're saying Substack, you seem like you have pretty broad knowledge of it. That's good. Seems like you actually like listen to a lot of resources, a lot of different sources on economic issues, right? But
well, yeah, I don't spend as much time reading every sexual assault allegation against the president, but I am broadly familiar that Joe Biden was accused of sexual assault by one person. I believe Donald Trump has been accused of sexual assault by I believe it's 25 or 26 people, and one of which he was found civilly liable for. We have many audio recordings. Well, yeah.
Audio recording where he was bragging like a.
Well, we have one audio recording of him saying, "I'm a star. You can do whatever you want. Grab them by the pussy." We have more recordings of him saying weird stuff about, "I would date my daughter if she was older or whatever." We know he was friends with Epstein.
Like Bill Clinton was,
you know, we
and
know
Bill Gates,
that
they were
they're
friends with Epstein, right?
well, they weren't as close, but I mean, yeah,
So Donald
Bill Clinton
Trump,
was.
you're not, are you
But
saying like he and
I never
Epstein?
voted for Bill Clinton, and we didn't know anything about Bill Clinton having that when we.
I'm old enough to vote for Bill Clinton. I didn't,
But we didn't even.
I
No
was
one
actually
even
a
knew.
Democrat.
No one
I
knew
was
any of the
actually,
allegations against Bill Clinton or whatever when they were voting for Bill Clinton, and like people like that's not a known thing at the time. People are voting for Trump, knowing that he has all these sexual assault allegations against him. Has said several, like I said, several of these comments, has walked in on teenage girl dressing rooms. We know about Epstein now, and we know that Trump was friends with Epstein up until 2003 or whatever. Like, these seem like
look, okay, all right. I was a Democrat when Bill Clinton ran both times, and there were allegations of rape before he ran, and Democrats lined up behind Bill Clinton. I actually didn't like Bill Clinton. At the time, I was such a radical feminist. I was offended by the way that he treated Hillary.
okay.
But I saw Democrats just line up behind him. Why? Well, first off, he was pro-abortion. That was really it. He was pro-abortion, and he's actually more, people say he's like more conservative than Donald Trump these days, because he
Bro.
triangulated a lot of those issues. But so it's funny, and then he's got a picture of a painting of himself at Epstein Island in a blue dress. But that's just here's the
Okay, hold on.
intellectual
I just want to be
dishonesty
number
again. There's
one.
a lot of intellectual dishonesty. That's the thing that just roils me. That's actually why I love Trump, because he is
I'm
the
sure.
great disruptor when it comes to this intellectual dishonesty.
I'm pretty
He
sure,
keeps
just real
getting
quick, because I've been searching for this in background. I'm pretty sure the claim that Joe Biden did stuff with his daughter or whatever, pretty sure that's like literally just made up. I don't think there's any at all ever credible reporting ever
Yeah,
of this.
and
I
there's
think it's
zero.
literally, I think it's literally
But
just Facebook
every
memes.
accusation against Trump is credible. Why? Because he's Trump, and
No,
that's the weird thing.
not necessarily, but we have a lot more evidence to substantiate them. That's
No,
why
we
E. Jean
don't.
Carroll is found.
No,
What do you
no, we
mean?
don't. E. Jean Carroll,
Well, we have her testimony. I
a
believe there are
packed court.
also. I believe we also have photographs of them together or whatever. Prior to the incident, and I believe Trump, I believe, lied about that. He said he didn't even know who E. Jean Carroll was, and we know all the comments I've made or that I said Trump has made. Like, we have audio recordings of or video recordings of him making those type of weird
Tara
comments.
Reid actually
We
worked
have
for
testimony from
Tara Reid
people.
worked for Joe Biden. She actually told
Yeah.
somebody after it happened. Yeah.
So did
See,
E. Jean
none of that,
Carroll.
huh?
So did E. Jean Carroll.
Oh,
I believe
okay.
they.
So then why is Joe Biden like, he's like fine? Like, those are just unsubstantiated claims, and Donald Trump
It's
is
not that
like,
they're.
oh my
I
gosh,
don't know.
he
I never
it.
did
He
that much reading into
absolutely
it, but
does
it's not
He's
that it's entirely.
authoritarian.
It's not that it's entirely unsubstantiated. But again, Joe Biden has one sexual assault allegation against him. Donald Trump has been found civilly liable for digital penetration, and he has far more sexual assault allegations against him. And I have more reason to believe that they're true, partially because of the comments Trump has made and the actions he's done with regards to being buddy-buddy with Epstein and stuff.
So every guy who's raped a girl and didn't get taken to court, because the court didn't say he raped her, that's
I don't
fine.
know. I don't know how you're getting that from what
Like,
I'm saying, honestly. Like,
because the comparison you're making is that you're saying like Tara Reid, that's kind of, that was like an isolated event that was
I'm saying if one
unsubstantiated.
person.
E. Jean Carroll was proven in court, so E. Jean Carroll got her day in court years later. Tara Reid
Mhm.
still has not gotten her day in court, not because she didn't try. She tried, not because it's not true what happened to her, but
Okay.
because
So to be clear, what I'm
she
saying is when one person has one sexual assault allegation against him versus another person who has some 25, 26, something like that, sexual assault allegations against him and has been found civilly liable for digitally penetrating a person and has made several comments that are suggest that he is of the nature, is of the character to do things like this. and was friends with one of the most, notorious like sexual predators of all time. That gives me I have a lot more reason to be concerned about person B here than person A.
I actually, you know what? I guess maybe I'm a little bit more fair because I'm like, let's investigate both. But one never got investigated. One never got her day in court.
Is
Why?
there a reason?
Why? No, she got bullied, pushed aside. Bill Clinton, all those women that went up against him, boy, they never got their day in court. Somehow, but
So, I mean, I think the vast majority of like cases like this don't ever see their day in court or whatever.
yeah, they don't. They
Was
don't.
able to, yeah, Eugene Carroll was able to sue civilly because of the whatever Survivors Act or whatever.
Yeah, she
that
also
allowed
had
her.
she had a politically driven prosecutor who was in a court system that was willing that I'm confusing two
It
cases
was a
here.
civil
No.
case.
Huh?
There was no. It's a civil case. It's not even a
No,
prosecutor.
I was confusing the two New York cases. You know, there's the 35 counts, felony
Or
counts, and the
34.
E. Jean
Yeah.
Carroll. I sometimes I confuse those because they were both BS that were just
True.
politically motivated. They were both politically motivated by TDS. This is all I've, I I tell you, the whole episode with Luke Beasley has just kind of really proven to me again that the left is Trump is like the tonic that has proved why the left is insane. Because on
Okay.
the right, and on the right, there's actually more debate and discourse and people that don't agree with Donald Trump that question Donald Trump that don't just line up like MAGA, like blue no matter who.
I
But
absolutely. That's
the
like
left has a culture that is authoritarian,
true.
lining up behind a leader like Gavin Newsom, and it's concerning because Gavin Newsom is now doing stuff here. He just pulled this thing with a Prop 50 in California. And
Mm-hmm.
he got it passed because he just amplified the Trump is trying to take away your rights. And California, a lot of Californians fell for that. And then this guy is going to be lining up. Yeah, I mean, this was his test run to run for president. Oh my word! This authoritarian. I'm not worried about Donald Trump. I'm worried about Gavin Newsom being in the White House in 2 or 3 years.
True.
That's
Okay.
what I'm
So
worried about because he's a true authoritarian.
for one, you absolutely see a culture on the right of lining up behind Trump. I understand there are arguments, between factions in the right. Most of the people who like disagree with Trump that are in Trump's face seem to actually think he should go further. They seem to be more of the Groyper type people who are like, actually, Trump needs to do more mass deportations. I can't believe he hasn't deported all 20 million illegal immigrants yet. I can't believe he repealed or reversed some of the tariffs. He should have kept up 300,000% tariffs on everyone. But you do see a lot of party loyalty to Trump. Everyone fell in line to back him. When he ran, he won the primary despite not even going to any of the debates. You absolutely see a lot of this.
Which primary? Well, you're not talking in 2016. He went
No,
to
the
all
20,
the
the
debates.
second, the 2020 primary for or 2024 primary Republican
The
Party.
2020. Why would he go to those debates with
No,
who?
my bad. The 2024 primary. He
So
won
you're going to
despite
compare?
not going to any of the debates. And you see Congress people.
He won the
Congressmen all the
primary.
time.
Why? As a Republican, anybody who was going up against him, why would you waste your time? Honestly, I mean, if you're gonna start bringing up party politics, tell me why
You're the one that
Hillary.
brought up party politics. You said the left is crazy. They all line up behind the same
Oh,
person
okay. No,
and have an authoritarian culture. I'm saying we see
I was talking
probably
internal politics. That's fair. That's a fair statement. I will say if you're going to bring up what happened with internal Republican Party politics and Trump, then it's fair to bring up internal party politics that happened with Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden.
True.
And that was actually my whole thing with Luke and saying that Kamala was a DEI candidate. Because talk about things going into lockstep. I was like, they put Kamala on the ticket for one reason because she was black. She was. Oh no. I like to point this out. They didn't put her on the ticket because to win the black vote. Joe Biden had already won the black vote in South Carolina. He already proved it himself by saying he was going to put a black woman on the ticket. Then he turned around and put the least black woman on the ticket because he still knew he needed to get the white suburban liberal vote. And Kamala is a more black good person than Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams, let's be honest, she was too black for like the liberals up in Connecticut who, go to the country club. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
I mean,
a Trump derangement. It really is Trump derangement syndrome. Trump does something. Trump breathes oxygen. Oxygen.
I feel like for all of these things, like I've explained to you, like quite a bit of detail and most of it through like my own reading of sources, like why like what Trump did with January 6th is like infinitely worse than what Gore did with 2000, and it's not because of any mainstream media Trump derangement syndrome shit. That's because I did a lot of reading. I read a lot of the January 6th report that came out. I read a lot of Jack Smith's indictments. I've seen the emails between Eastman and Chesbrough and Jim Trupis and Mike Pence and Greg Jacob. Like I've read the details, the depositions of the meetings they had to try to overturn the election. I've read some of the statutes involved.
Let me ask you: Have you talked to J6ers that were there?
I've talked to 2 of them.
Okay, I've talked to a lot of J6ers. People who went to prison, women who went to prison.
This is totally unrelated.
No, it's not. Don't tell me that was not a political prosecution.
I'm telling you why it's not. It's absolutely not a political prosecution. But I'm telling you, like none of this is like it's not Trump derangement syndrome to suggest that like what Trump did was way worse than what Gore did. Considering I've done quite a bit of reading. January 6th, and I've determined that it's not like Trump derangement syndrome in any way. Like I'm citing evidence for all these things with regards to saying like tariffs are really bad, and the tariffs that Trump is doing are like significantly worse than the tariffs Biden did. Even though I think some of the tariffs Biden did were bad too. I don't see why we need to tariff Chinese electric vehicles. I don't really care about tariffing Canadian lumber like he did or whatever.
Of course, but I kind of see that part of the TDS now. This conversation has actually helped me a lot. Because I see part of the TDS is that when Trump does something that somebody else does, there's this extra oomph that's put in there that automatically says it's worse.
No,
so
what do you mean?
If Gore, and it's always like some technicality.
No, look again, it's the kicking a puppy versus like burning 100 puppies alive. Like Biden might be kicking a puppy when he tariffs electric vehicles at 25% and he tariffs Canadian lumber at 10%. Trump is burning 1 million puppies alive when he tariffs all of our allies, every single country in the world, at least 10%. When he, tariffs China at 145%, just to the next day bring it down to 30% or whatever. These are like substantially different things in scale. Same thing with Bush and January 6th and stuff.
No, they're different, but the scale that you're working is you're putting like thumbs on the scale on one side. Because you're literally like, hey, it's like taking a puppy and not feeding it the right kibble, and then it's like taking a puppy, screwing its head off, drinking its blood.
That is a fair comparison between what Gore did and what Trump did with January 6th.
Filming it and then showing it to children.
Well, that is absolutely that is literally a fair comparison, and I think all the evidence says it, like between what Gore did with Florida and what Trump did with January 6th. I don't even know if Gore was acting in bad faith at all for the Florida stuff.
Gore wasn't even acting in bad faith, even though he lost.
Well, first of all, plausibly, I think he might have won Florida because they never did a recount on counties. But second of all,
so now you're saying, because I remember back then they said Bush stole the election. And I heard about it for 8 years, how Bush stole the election. And then when Donald Trump won, I heard for 4 years that he stole the election. And then when Donald Trump says, I think they stole the election.
Do you understand?
Suddenly it's like he has urinated in a puppy's mouth, taken that, shaken it up into some weird cocktail.
I don't think there's been any lie that's done more damage to the United States than the lies that Trump, Giuliani, all of his lawyers.
Did J6?
than that the 2020 election was stolen in the way Trump suggested it. Liberal, like ultra liberal people saying like Bush stole the election. They were never like saying like there was actual ballot fraud and like actual illegal immigrants doing
I'm
all
wondering
these.
if I'm next. I'm next because I claimed my mother-in-law. She's dead now. And maybe I'm next because I claimed my mother-in-law stole my vote in 2013. When are they going to come for me?
Okay. I don't think like again. So what like liberals are saying like the Bush stole the election or whatever, which I don't know what percent of liberals did that in 2000 or whatever. They're being, I think they're being hyperbolic, to be fair. But in fairness, I don't think any of them foresaw a future where someone tried to steal an election, even harder. Trump again, like OAN putting out fake videos of Georgia state legislator, supposedly having suitcases, stuff with ballots or whatever.
How are they fake
Fox
videos?
News.
When were they proven to be fake videos?
I'm pretty sure OAN was involved in a lawsuit, but OAN spliced together a video from Georgia state legislator, or from Georgia, their ballot counting, and try to set it.
I mean, I
election
watched
fraud.
those videos
But if you watch the full video,
and,
it didn't.
And if they,
did you watch the full video? The OAN fake video.
Are we accusing them of now? So if a news organization edits a video, that's now a crime. Oh, it actually is, because that's what 60 Minutes did to Donald Trump.
No, they edited
in the court, and they were actually. So OAN. I haven't heard in the news about. You'd think that OAN would have been like headlines, but Donald Trump actually. That's right. They settled out of court. So OAN, I don't think have they been convicted of this?
I don't know. I believe OAN did settle a lawsuit.
What?
I thought OAN did settle a lawsuit, but
wait. So they're not guilty of it, because settling a lawsuit means you're not guilty of it. You're just wanting it to go away.
Well, number one, that's not true. That's not true, and I never held that. That's not true, and I never held that to be. I don't know why you keep supposing these things. I never held that to be the case. Number one, settling a lawsuit for a insane amount of money is evidence of your guilt. All else equal. Yeah, probably. Number two, there's discovery in these lawsuits, and you can for Dominion and stuff, you can read the text of Tucker Carlson saying, "I know I was lying. We're very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I fucking hate Trump." You could go through the evidence in the case and come to your own conclusion. There's discovery.
So Tucker Carlson was just some kind of robot who was going along with everything. He got.
Have you read his text? Do you deny that Tucker Carlson admitted to lying? That's why he was fired?
No, I don't know. I'm just if Tucker Carlson admitted that he was lying, again, thank you for pointing that out. I'm going to go research it.
Yeah, it's all in his text messages that were discovery in the Dominion lawsuit. And yeah, OAN did settle a lawsuit with Dominion as well.
Because TDS, when I hear something coming from a TDS source, that's my cue to go and double check it myself.
Okay. I mean, yeah, those are publicly accessible text messages that you can go read. But
I'd love to, because Tucker's under fire now for having a Nazi on.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on fire, just like Donald Trump had a Nazi to dinner. I'm like, okay. Just things are so polarized. That's what I'm worried about for this country, is that it's things are so polarized that I don't want young people to unnecessarily die. I don't want to lose our republic. I know that the season is such that this is a time that things will get polarized. Because the guys who came up with the term millennial generation, the guys who came up with that, they actually have this whole history theory called the fourth turning, right? And they said that they predicted back in the 90s when they first came out with their books, by the way, that had blurbs by Bill Clinton and Al Gore saying these guys are spot on. They predicted that in the 2020s, we'd be facing an era of social crisis in which the polarization in the political discourse would get very heated, and it would be like during the World War, the Depression and World War II era, the Civil War and the era and the Compromise era leading up to that Revolutionary War. I'm just concerned that, that TDS is a part of that. It's that it's not helpful. And I'm just looking for honest political debate. And I will tell you, I think you did a better job. Of course, we had a longer conversation. I think you did a better job of creating like arguments than Luke Beasley did. His were like meme-based arguments. They were just like his premises were horribly constructed. You can't argue them. They're too subjective. They're too narrative. And to really come up with something tangible, too theoretical. They were like thought experiments and about that at the most. You did a better job of actually coming with your premises and with your arguments, I got to say. But I would say,
by the way, just OAN did, as like a part of the settlement, they had to make a statement saying that there was actually no widespread election fraud, and that the Georgia ballot counters did not commit election fraud. That was part of the settlement.
Now check that out with the settlement with CBS in 60
minutes. But you recognize CBS like settled for a much lower amount, right? I think it was 16 million, and they were being sued by the president of the United States.
What did OAN settle for?
I don't know.
How much did OAN settle for?
I don't remember. I can probably check. But
by the way, I do have to go in a little bit. I've got a big screening tomorrow that I have to get ready for. We're screening Charlie Kirk's Identity Crisis as part of our D-Trans Hollywood series.
Yeah, no worries. I don't know if it's been. I don't think they disclosed how much they settled for. I think they just made the public statement that they. Yeah, confidential settlement, resolved it through a confidential settlement. So I don't know, but yeah, no worries. I said we would go, 90 minutes to 2 hours
fine.
Or whatever. It's been a little over 2 hours. So yeah, you can make whatever closing statement you want. You can promote your Twitter again and stuff. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So the closing statement I have is just like, I am concerned about lowering the temperature in this room because we are in a time of social crisis. And in order to really get out of it, we're going to have to look hard at our values as Americans. We're going to have to look hard as our identity as Americans, and these fights that are like just demagogical based fights are not helpful. We have to take hard looks at what our principles and our values really are. If the future, my children's future, my grandchildren's future, is going to be good for this, is going to be as good as the America that I grew up in. So I just pray that the debates and the conversations we have actually do come up with good solutions and a good consensus that will take this nation forward into the future. And you can find out more about me. You can follow me at The Emilio Show on Instagram and X, also Threads. So wherever I'm at, and YouTube, although I don't have much there. But yeah,
well,
thank you. Hey, you know what? Thanks again for having me on this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. And if you want to help me continue to make content, liking, subscribing, and commenting are all greatly appreciated. You can also make sure to check out my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter down below, or consider becoming a member to my YouTube channel, which really helps support me as well.